Wait on sin, con sin, wait on sin.
All right. Video 2, foundational precepts. As a birth keeper, as a practitioner of sacred medicine, these are what came to me as the foundational precepts I want to offer you that I work from when working in the spiritual birthing realm. So some of these things might be new, and some of them might be like old wisdom in your heart, but I just wanted to offer them as my foundations for offering this course and why I want to offer this course. Okay, number 1. Birth is a sacred ceremony and must be honored as such. So it comes to me now to have to describe what sacred is. And sacred is deserving of the highest reverence, of honor, of love, of beauty offering, of giving to. Birth is deserving of holding in a reverent way. All of our ancestors, if we go far back enough, are earth-based people that had sacred ceremonies, medicine people, shaman, if you will, help steward the birthing portal, because we believe that the birth is a portal, right? We open this portal and we bring life from the spirit realm to the material realm. We give light, okay? So birth is literally and should be the first ceremony. The very first ceremony is birth. And it needs to be honored as a ceremony, honored as a sacred way. When we are disrespected, not given consent, when our power is taken away from us and we are in fear and survival mode during our birthing space, this energy extends into the life place. One of the people I have you follow, Partera Midwifery, posted a meme recently about what the baby experiences in birth is important. A newborn is having an important experience, and we treat newborns as objects, but they're human beings incarnating into this world, and the thing that happens upon receiving them is going to leave a lasting impression, not only on them but on their progeny. So birth, we actually all carry our birth trauma, and some of us carry the birth traumas of our mothers and their mothers, or their birthers. So birth is a sacred ceremony and must be honored as such. That is one of my basic precepts, and many people's basic precepts, because it is the first happening. It's the first occurrence, okay? And we need to give it the space to be a sacred occurrence, or there will be and have been repercussions, okay? 2, birth is literally life and death. We create life. When we create life, we must also be willing to accept death. So I speak on this because of the intense fear-mongering that happens around birthers' bodies and around the birthing experience, specifically amongst the medical professionals and within the medical industrial complex. And I also believe that part of the reason, especially as a practitioner who works in all manifestations of humanity and all illnesses, I've treated people, you name it, right? They've come through. One of the biggest ways the establishment, the colonial establishment, keeps power over us is our fear of death, by making death the most undesirable thing. When I've met elders, I've met people who desire death. Because of many different reasons. Death can also be medicine. And this is one of the indigenous principles that has been lost in colonialism, I believe much for the purpose of profit. Because if we can keep people scared of dying, we can charge them anything to keep them alive. So that also goes for birthing bodies. So many patients have come just so scared that their baby's gonna die, because this is the narrative given to many of our medical professionals. If you don't do this, baby will die. If you don't do this, baby will die. You could die. And that's not necessarily untrue. And that's why I'm bringing this up. It's not that we want death. It's that in order to accept life, we must also accept death, because death is a part of life. When I was first pregnant, I didn't want to get an ultrasound. There are reasons, we can talk about that later. But I talked to my midwife, who is an indigenous midwife. And she said, one of the things she said to me was, well, getting an ultrasound, one, before 20 weeks, it just looks like a ball. So you're like, nice ball. But two, it's a safety illusion, because even miscarriage is a variation of normal. Even stillbirth is a variation of normal. And that's happened time and time again in history. So us pathologizing in such a negative and even demonizing way this variation of normal keeps us in a fear place that is actually potentially reifying the fear and reifying what we are afraid of, if that makes sense. So when we choose to give life, we have to also choose to potentially accept death. And that is not only for babies, but that's also for birthers. I also need to make it clear here that natural birthing is not necessarily safer than hospital birthing, and hospital birthing is not necessarily safer than home birthing, depending on what care you receive and who listens to you and what your body says in the beginning. So part of what I aim to offer you is a reconnection to self, so that you can listen, that you can be connected to your baby, be connected to your body, help the birthers you're helping be connected to their babies, be connected to their bodies, because only the birthing body lives in the birthing body, and the birther's baby lives in the birthing body. So the person who is going to give birth knows best. The person who is going to give birth can feel different, can feel when it's time to give birth, can feel when maybe baby's not going to stay. Okay, so I want us to refamiliarize ourselves with the medicine of death in a way that gives us freedom from fearing death, so that we can freely transform and create life. We can talk about this in our follow-up meetings. Okay. Next, womb holders have been successfully giving birth for thousands and thousands of years. There is trusted ancient birth wisdom from all of our ancestors, and it is time for us to relearn. So the Industrial Revolution has only been around for about 100 years, maybe a little more, but the birth as we understand it now has been happening in hospitals for around 100, so maybe 100 plus years. Our ancestors have been giving birth, and I think it's really telling of the medical industrial complex how powerful it is, and how much money has been put into advertising and I dare say brainwashing, that we would trust these medical doctors over our own bodies. And that's again going back to the colonialism part of it. That's again why it's time for us to reconnect to ourselves and our bodies. Our ancestors live in us through our DNA. So when we are connecting to our bodies, we're actually connecting to the knowing, to the sabiduría of our ancestors. Now there are also birth keepers who carry this wisdom. Okay, Indigimama is one of them. Postpartum Healing Lodge is one of them. There are many midwives that you can look to who honor the space and time of birth, and it's time for us to give ourselves permission to remember the birthing in our lineages, whether they're through dreams or through intuition. Okay, whether it's studying midwifery or studying our own bodies. All right, our bodies were made for this. Our bodies have been made for this for a very, very long time. And this is also honoring the previous two, that sometimes death is involved, because life and death go hand in hand. It's a lot to take in. So I invite you to sit with any emotions that come up, as is one of your prompts in your questions. All right. 4, part of this relearning is that of reconnection to the self, the body vessel, our intuition, to earth, and to source. So once again, relearning all of this has to do with unlearning the indoctrinated superiority of the establishment. That's why this is decolonial work, because what we're asking ourselves to do is remember who we are and connect to our own ability to trust our bodies, trust ourselves, trust our body's natural processes. So that looks like spending time alone. That looks like connecting with your body, moving your body, get your blood moving, get your flow going. That looks like practicing your intuition. Intuition does so many things, and some of us are better at it than others, but we all have the capability, especially as birthers, as you'll learn, to deeply connect with our intuition. Yes, connect with earth. When we're recognizing the processes of earth, the processes of the animals around us, of the seasons around us, they are a macrocosm of our bodies, of our microcosm. So reconnecting to earth, as opposed to staying divorced from earth in an industrial society where we don't touch the grass, we don't know what the cold is like because of heaters, we don't know what the hot is like because of air conditioners, we can't connect to our own body's microcosmic understanding because we're not connected to the earth medicines, the earth understanding. So connecting to the earth understanding is really powerful, and that is part of source. When I say source, that could mean God to you, that could mean any of the deities, your histories, your culture, honors for whatever reasons. Connecting to the highest, the most high, whatever that means. That could be just your highest self, or not just, but it could be in your belief system your highest self. But the point is to let your highest good, your highest knowing, your connection to Great Spirit, to source, be on a higher importance, a higher bar than the establishment's rules on you. So this takes time, right? We have all been deeply conditioned in this society. We have all been deeply conditioned in Western culture. And there are going to be things that are going to come up no matter what that we're like, oh, that's colonized, right? It's a journey. This is a journey, and our journey to reconnection is a long one, but it is possible, and we're already doing it if you listen to the call to be here and are following it. Okay, 5. The birthing process is one of becoming a warrior. We are divinely entitled to this process, empowered by our full agency and our choice, and full understanding of our choices. So agency in our choice. There are a lot of options, as we'll see in birth. I consider myself an agency advocate. Of course, as y'all all, if you follow me, been able to tell that I am more of a naturalist than anything. But more than anything, I want us to have say in what happens to our body. I want us to choose what happens to our body. So the warrior part is in Mexica tradition, women who birthed and potentially died in childbirth were honored as warriors who died on the battlefield. There is a threshold you come to as a birthing human that gives you a key to the spirit realm and helps you move down with your child to the material realm. This is a crossing of a threshold. This is a powerful, powerful transformational ceremony. I believe, it is part of my personal belief system, that warriorship, that transformational ceremony is one of the greatest becomings of our potential experience. It's the most powerful thing I've ever done. And in order to honor that power, we need to be able to honor that ceremony, come through that portal. Okay, and if somebody else takes away the power we could gain by that releases, there's a dynamic there that continues a disempowerment throughout the rest of our lives. So the warriorship and the honoring of the warrior self through birth is something I believe is invaluable in our reclamation of our human power, and not just in birth but in life, because again, birth is life and the birth ceremony is the first ceremony. So it makes a lot of sense to me how we have been so disenfranchised from our bodies, so many of us in birth, that this outside person, this medically trained human knows more than us about our birth. Because if we actually stood in the power of our birthing bodies, we would realize that we have the power, if that makes sense. And I need to say, this isn't in a judgment place of people who have been in highly medicalized births, but this is again a remembrance of the innate power in a birthing body, and how that innate power is the conduit of so much of our life power in this world. And when that is taken from us, it does something to our spiritual selves unconsciously that is very damaging, which is why the agency part of it is of utmost importance. Okay, and we have to have choice. We have to have a choice. Our body, our choice, right? Okay. 6, birthing is an initiation, a deep letting go and becoming, a transformation. Okay, so here's the other part, and we'll cover it in our postpartum piece. When we birth, we die, and not necessarily from the material realm, but the person we knew ourselves to be is not there anymore. The things we loved, the ability of our body to do certain things, like our bodies change, our desires change, our chemicals change, our brains literally change in order to make space for the instinctual necessity of life giving, of giving life. If we were in the wild, we would have to be very keen intuitively to make sure our offspring could survive. Okay, so this is a letting go and a becoming. We are literally becoming somebody else. So we have to hold space for the grief. We have to hold space for the release of that person who used to be. Okay, and we need to hold space for this entirely new person that we just met, including the newborn you just met. Okay, so this is like undo everything and welcome new. So there needs to be space for the duality of that, the deep grief and deep joy that comes with meeting a love you've never known, but letting go of a self that you've grown in and learned to love. And then last but not least, as life is sacred, as death is sacred, so is the birthing human and the newborn child. I believe that when we birth, just as in when we celebrate birth and when we celebrate death in like a wake and a thank you for living, in the passing of a human ready to go and the joy they feel in releasing this earthly realm, the humans in this scenario are to be honored, are to be celebrated. They are the conduits of this life energy. They are the next generation. They are the new parent, the steward of life, and they are life. They are the future ancestors. So when we are birth keepers, when we are birth stewards, part of our job is to honor as so sacred the birther and the baby and the portals that bring them in and maybe that take them to the spirit realm. Our job is to be the priests if you will, the priestesses of the sanctity of these portals, these humans in this realm. And through our holding of this sanctity, we are healing the relationship of birth to the earthly realm, the relationship of birth to the spirit realm, the relationship of birth to humanity, and the relationship of humanity to itself through the birthing portal. This is important work. And if you've been drawn to it, it's because you were meant to steward this sacred work. So thank you so much once again for being here. Yes, and once again, I encourage you to sit with any emotions, any thoughts, any challenges, any triggers that come up for you during any of this material. I am honored to receive any feedback from all of you who are so divine and so called in a spirit sense to be here. And thank you for trusting me, and thank you for holding space for learning and holding space for challenging yourself and me and the world in this new becoming. Mateo.
Wait nang sin, wait nang sin.